Greetings and welcome to a Simmer and Forslund podcast. Oh my God, aren't you folks lucky? Rob Simpson, star of stage, screen, and television. And John Forslund, superstar broadcaster. Johnny, how are you? What's going on?
Great, Simmer. Nice Sunday. Happy Sunday to you.
Thank you. You'll be getting on an aircraft tomorrow at some juncture and beginning a little three-game road trip.
Yeah, can't wait. Can't wait.
I
About
bet.
time. Yep.
This is SeattleHockeyInsider.com. You can check us out on Spotify, of course, at the website, and also on YouTube at Simmerpuck, which is also my Twitter handle. Johnny Kidd, what is your Twitter handle?
At John Forslund.
Oh, well, that's difficult. This week, I'm starting the stopwatch. We're going 24 minutes. 24 minutes, because we're tidy and efficient.
Mm-hmm.
You get to go first. Give me a number 24 in honor of.
Terry O'Reilly.
Oh, dude, you stole mine. Okay, go ahead.
Good.
That's okay.
The Tasmanian Devil.
Oh,
That guy was a self-made player. And, as a young boy watching the Bruins religiously, watching him scrap his way through and become a 20-goal scorer, and then become a coach. Just a legend through and through.
all right. You know what? Because his jersey hangs from the Raptors at TD Garden, I'm just doubling up because I'm going to stick with him because that's who I was going to go with. I spoke to him on the phone about 3 weeks ago because I'm working on a book project, and there was a famous incident where a fan jumped onto the ice to essentially kind of attack a referee.
Yeah.
And Taz was on the bench, and the whole thing is hysterical. So I had a great conversation with. He did book signings with us many years ago when we had a Bruins book out. He's just a phenomenal guy, but he was a maniac on the ice, a freaking maniac.
Like it's so long ago. That's one thing, but it's so long ago hockey wise, right? Like it's completely different and long gone. But when you talk to anybody who played in that era on those teams, and my dear friend, the late Peter McNabb, used to tell me so many great stories about that group, and I could listen to him all day long. And it's remarkable, absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, the late great Peter McNabb. Number 8.
Yeah.
I was on a bus with the Bruins alumni once, riding from Boston to the Maritimes. And we were well equipped with beverages, and we just stood in the aisle and talked hockey for endless hours. It was unbelievable. And Tazzy was one of those guys. Great choice by both of us. Let's get into the Seattle Kraken.
Okay.
It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. While other teams are plugging and playing and trying to figure things out, it's like, okay, let's start with Vince Dunn. We do believe he's going to be okay. He's been skating on a regular basis. Didn't play in the games, but he is the second leading scorer. He's a top pair defenseman.
Right.
Are we thinking he's okay?
I think so. Based on what we saw Saturday, he was with Adam Larson. It looks like he should be good to go, unless something, that we're not expecting is announced on Monday. But I believe everything that I know, that he should be ready. Kind of mysterious, whatever happened to him. It was in and around that bonding weekend where they left, and then Vince was out and didn't practice. But he did make the trip to Edmonton. So I think if there was anything that was either very serious or needed more rehab here at home, he never would have gone to Edmonton in the first place. And he took a full morning skate there on the day of the final preseason game. So I think it's all systems go. Let's hope.
There didn't seem to be a hitch in his giddy up, but he was a little dainty on the ice the other day. But it might be because there's been a flu bug going around a couple teams. So maybe
it could be. And you know what? You don't get any information anyway when it comes to injuries around the National Hockey League.
Right.
Simmer, you don't get any at all in training camp because they don't have to tell us anything really in training camp unless they really have to or want to and whatever. So we just go on a need-to-know basis. And who's ever out there Tuesday morning, we'll take a look at it and we'll see what happens. But I expect him to play.
Okay, well, we did get some injury news for a guy transitioning out of training camp into the regular season. That would be an ex-Kraken, Carson Soucy.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Vancouver Canucks. He gets pinned. He falls awkwardly under Sharanpovich of the Calgary Flames, and it's now listed. He's listed as week to week. They did not indicate whether it was high ankle or leg or knee, but it's week to week for him. Unfortunate. Also, a little news: ex-Kraken Martin Jones was waived today by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Not unexpected because they have two netminders. He was brought in kind of as an emergency basis, and I'm sure if he clears, which is well, I don't know if that's expected because Tampa might be looking at some goaltenders. If he does clear, he'll be available to be their call up when they need a guy. I don't know if he'll be around. I would think.
Well, the part of that equation is Joseph Wall, the young goalie that's going to be the 2 in Toronto, also needs waivers, right? That's my understanding. So it was an either or. They're going to keep the young goalie. The young goalie was good. I think Jones just did his thing in training camp and is there as as you say, as an insurance policy. I don't know what the Lightning are going to do. When Vasilevsky went out the last time we spoke, I thought it was a given that they might have to get somebody. We'll know tomorrow by 2 p.m. Pacific when the rosters are solidified for the start of the regular season. We'll know exactly where this stands. But Jonas Johansson had an excellent training camp. Every time he got out there, they finished 4 up and 2 down, and he was a big part of it. He had a good training camp. He's still an unproven goalie at the National Hockey League level, but maybe they're going to go with the internal choice. That's what Julian Brisebois, their GM, said right away, that they'd stay internal with this. But Jones is a reasonable option for anybody that needs it. I would say the Lightning are the one team that may need it the most. I think just about everybody else, maybe Colorado, but we'll see. We'll see.
All right, well, let's keep it right there between the pipes. Seattle Kraken, Joey Daccord, similar scenario in a way.
Yeah.
4 years younger, a hell of a lot less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Joey Daccord gets the nod over Chris Driedger. Both very good, actually, in training camp. Probably both better than Philip Grubauer in training camp.
Fair point.
But Joey Daccord's the guy.
Yeah, and I think he had the inside track for 2 reasons. What he did in the American Hockey League and Driedger's all the way back scenario. And we spoke about this too. So it's unfortunate for him. I think the way the money works out, it's a wash. There's money, when he goes down. And so really, when you take into account Daccord's cap hit, most importantly, it's an important position with this team. Philip Grubauer, just average to below, in my opinion, in training camp. Better in Edmonton Friday night. That was good. I mean, he was sharp at the beginning of the game and really needed to be. I think the Oilers had 4 breakaway chances, grade A chances right out of the chute. Daccord gives them, again, to be fair, unproven at this level, but he's about to prove it. He's done everything he needs to do to develop. He's right there. He's different in the sense that he handles the puck much better than Grubauer, and just as well as all the guys who are considered excellent puck handlers at the NHL level. So when you game plan against the Kraken, depending on who the goalie is, it'll be a little bit different for the other side. So it's a different look, and the team's going to have to adapt to that too. I don't know if that's just a hand in glove thing. I think that might take some getting used to, because you have Grubauer who keeps it simple because he doesn't handle it well. And Daccord likes to get out and get it, move it up the ice quickly. They're going to have to be ready for it. But I think there's enough familiar terms there with the boys that they understand, the difference between the two and how it plays into what they're about to do. But it's an important position because Philip Grubauer, again, 50 games, maybe 55 games. That's what you're looking at. No more than that. So you're looking at, strong, possible 30 starts for the number 2. And most teams need a tandem today, and that's the way the Kraken will roll this season. But good for him; he's earned every bit of this.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, and I wrote about the other day on SeattleHockeyInsider.com, we might see him sooner than later. Joey Daccord. By the way, Chris Driedger, apparently Tampa didn't need him, nor did another NHL club, because he was waived Saturday with John Hayden, the forward, Cale Fleury, the defenseman. All 3 of those gentlemen have cleared, so they will be reporting to Coachella Valley, which brings up the D-Corps. So Cale Fleury goes down. Carson Souza, who we just mentioned, is in Vancouver, and he's injured. Brian Dumoulin is the new guy. How do we feel about the slight changes with the Kraken D-Corps starting this season? Ultimately, there's slight changes, big picture.
Yeah, Dumoulin and Schultz as the third pair look solid and will continue to grow together. Morgan, Will Morgan's in a different spot than he was last year at this time. You know, halfway through the season, because of an injury, he was able to get top 4 minutes and never leave Oleksiak's side all through the playoffs. Earned a new contract. But again, it's different, just like it will be for Vince Dunn. You come back to follow up a brilliant season with a new deal. Sometimes that can get into the head of a player, right? It can play head games, and they're going to have to adjust to that. Larson and Dunn, we expect a lot out of those two. That's good. Megna will be the extra defenseman. So, you know, Jacob Megna will give you a veteran guy that you move in, and if there's an injury, he's also in that position where he's going to sit for a while and, you know, be that guy at the ready. And then we get to Ryker Evans, who is knocking on the door. And I think by the end of training camp, Simmer, it was clearly evident that he was very, very close, but not there yet.
Yeah.
That player needed to bust the door down. There had to be no doubt in anyone's mind that he was absolutely good enough to be in the 6. Never mind just because he doesn't need to be an extra defenseman at this point of his career. He needs to play and continue the season. But even what we saw at the end of training camp leads you to believe he still needs more time. Yeah. There were still situations where he's good enough to recover. You know, the beauty about him is he has enough talent that when he makes a mistake, he can recover from it and bail himself out. He's that good. But there were mistakes. There were situations, and this guy was asked to play against Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl over and over again in 2 games. And that's hard for the top defenseman in the NHL, never mind a young player trying to make it, right? So good for him that he was able to withstand most of that, get some power play time, do a lot of great things, took a few penalties, put himself on the wrong side of the puck. But it reminds me an awful lot of where the Hurricanes were in 2015 with Jacob Slavin and Brett Pesce. It was a very similar situation, but the teams were totally different. The Hurricanes were retooling under Ron Francis. They were not going to be very good. It wasn't a good environment in the locker room, and they knew that. So those players were, after brilliant training camps, were put back in the minor leagues and then brought up around Thanksgiving and never went back. And now Slavin and Pesce are both regarded as top defensemen in the NHL. So when you look at this guy, will it be Thanksgiving? Who knows? We'll just have to see where the Kraken are at here. And he will definitely see some time this year. And if he doesn't, it will do him a boatload of good to play one more season. There's no question he will play. And if you ask any of the veteran guys, as I know you do, they all agree he's got a long career ahead of him. So he had an excellent training camp.
And he led the Daccord in ice time. Both the last couple of games, and I think he led the entire team in ice time, maybe in the Abbotsford game.
On every opportunity, right? It was a good, and if he didn't perform as well as he did, they would never ask him to do that. So, again, going back in my memory bank, I remember when the Whalers broke in an 18-year-old Chris Pronger, and they were hoping to send him back to junior, to be honest with you, because they didn't want to get into that contract right away, but they had to. And they played him every single preseason game. And I think the team had 9 back in those days. And he got better, and better. And he had to play as an 18-year-old. There's no way. He was the best defenseman on the team.
Yeah. I think Evans, I brought this up to Dave Haxtell, the head coach, and he was kind of, you know, whatever, but he kind of poo-pooed it. But I thought he was busting the door down until the Abbotsford game. I thought he had some weak moments there, and I thought he decrescendoed, so to speak, over the last couple of games. But anyway, he's fine. He's going to eat up ice time like a madman. And as you said, if they need him, they'll call him because he's going to be getting ice time with Coachella Valley. All right, up front, again, it's pretty clear that Seattle's keeping it pretty simple for us. You know, Spronger's gone, Daniel Spronger, Ryan Donato's gone. Wiki is gone. And we basically, I'm talking about Morgan Geekie. And now we have Kyler Yamamoto, Ty Cartier, and Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, a centerman. There are 13 forwards. So one of those gentlemen will sit initially. And I think that would come down to either Yamamoto or Cartier, depending on which way you want to go.
Right. And I think they like coming out of camp, the way it looks to me, Cartier, Bellemare, and Tanev, with Yamamoto being the extra. I think that's what the way it'll roll out. But I think it can be opponent based.
Yep.
It can be, you've got two different types of players. You've got a young player who plays with an edge who has a terrific shot and had plenty of power play time in training camp. I'm talking about Cartier, because Yamamoto's still a young player. Yamamoto, more of a shooter, more of a scorer, of a natural scoring touch, if you will. At least that's the potential. He still has to fill that card out at the NHL level. There's still some gray areas about this player. Otherwise, he never would have been available in the first place. Edmonton would have hung on to him. They did not. It's a lot to replenish, but I think it's going to be a different way of replenishing what they had. So what they had was a ton of goals on the fourth line, right?
Yep.
And I think the obvious thing to look at here, and I'm a little concerned about the scoring coming out of training camp, because there wasn't a lot of it, right? So it looks like they're going to grind again, 2-1, 3-1. That means the goaltending has to be great. That also means, what are you going to get from your fourth line? They had production from the fourth line last year, but there's no way they're going to get there. Okay. Sprung at his 21 goals, averaging 8 to 10 minutes or whatever it was, but he had flaws as a player that didn't earn the trust of the coaching staff, so the 5-on-5 option there was a stretch. Really good on a power play, really good in terms of that support scoring. Cartier, Bellemare, and Tanev give them a prototypical fourth line. You've got a veteran in the middle who's going to improve your face-off acumen. That's number one. He's going to kill penalties, and Bellemare is a terrific leader, so that's good. Tanev, we know what he can do. Infectious, energy, kill penalties, again, get out there and disturb the peace. That's all good. And Cartier gives you that edge and gets there the first man in the forecheck and hits, and has a tremendous NHL caliber release and shot. And so he's a power play option too. So I think they have the ability to roll a line out that's going to turn the tables from an energy standpoint, as opposed to a fourth line with Donato and Geeky and Sprong that's going to go out there and potentially score, which was the secret sauce, to be fair, which helped the Kraken get to where they went to last year and score just under 300 goals as a team and be the best 5-on-5 team goal scoring wise in the league. But I think, they have three great lines that give you balance in scoring, and you're hoping for more out of some of those guys. And then you've got this fourth line that should give you the right amount of goals for fourth line, but the dimension you need too. Some veteran savvy play down the middle and some energy with your bookends. That's needed too.
Cartier might be the secret sauce. Who knows? Who knows
Could
how many goals this kid could score, right?
Could. I think to expect 10 is fair. He could be better. Tanev should get you 10. Bellemare's only going to get you a handful if you look at his line, right? That's all he's going to do. And then Yamamoto needs to hit 10 goals or better, depending on what the role is for him and how much power play time either Cartier or Yamamoto or both get, right? So that's what we'll look at.
Maybe they'll look to get a little more, or hope to get a little more out of Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen on either side of Yanni
Right.
Court. I mean, they could generate. Tolvanen.
Well, sure, it's a full season of Tolvanen, which they didn't have, right? Yep. And he's very confident now, and he knows his role, and he finally has a set role with the team, which he's never had in his career. And Bjorkstrand, fought the adapting to a new team, slow start. Production-wise, I thought he was playing great. He just couldn't buy a goal for the longest time in the front end of the season, but he should give you at least 25 goals, if not more. So, and then Burakovsky for a full season, and he seems to be rounding himself back. I'm not sure he's all the way up to full speed. We'll find out on Tuesday night, because that's a long way back from that injury.
By the way, tough little roadie starting things off. Vegas against the Stanley Cup champs. Hope they get to sit in the dressing room and wait for the pomp and circumstance. Then they probably have season openers, St. Louis and Nashville. Again, you're probably sitting around and waiting, which sometimes hurts the home team because they have to stand on the bench, or they have to wait around for the introduce every player, blah, blah, blah. There's all that junk going on. And sometimes the road team comes out and performs rather well in home openers. We've seen that phenomena before, because they're just lounging in the dressing room getting ready to play. But a pretty good little test starting out. Bottom line, real quick, because we got about 5 minutes in our Terry O'Reilly special. Are they a better hockey team, the Seattle Kraken, in 2023-24 than they were on paper, obviously, than 22-23? Or is it
Yeah.
pretty damn close?
It's very close. Okay. It's very close. And I think there's a lot of obvious things you could look at and say no, because if you roll out the numbers in terms of the production, you might say, well, they didn't really replenish the production from the fourth line, right? But I'm not sure, again, getting back to what I just said, I don't know if it's more of a dynamic thing.
Yeah.
And I do think there's what they did now, and they all know what they did, but I think they have a burn to be better and to prove some people wrong still, because people still don't put them in the Edmonton category, the Colorado category, the Dallas category in the West.
Yeah.
And then certainly in the East, of Carolina, Jersey, and Toronto, and all those teams, whatever. But this is more importantly where the Kraken at. I think they're about the same, but I'll be interested to see what the difference is in terms of the guys coming back with that burn, the veteran presence of guys who have won and know what the follow-up to that looks like and feels like, because a lot of these guys have done that. So they understand that its expectations are higher now and teams are ready, but it shouldn't matter because they've been there. But the key again to me will be goaltending. And that was no different in year two than it was, at the start of this season. There it is again. So a lot of it's going to rest on Grubauer's shoulders to be Philip Grubauer's second half and through the playoffs. That version puts them in a good spot.
Goaltending was just as important in 1917 when the Metropolitans won the Stanley Cup, John.
They were great.
That's just the way it is. It's always about goaltending, which brings up
those are great games to watch now. You go back and watch the film
of it.
Yeah.
You brought up one point. Goaltending, it's always about goaltending. And it's quite possible that maybe Joey Daccord is an upgrade over Martin Jones in a pinch. And if he has to work a ton, you got a young guy who's 25 instead of 32. And then buy-in for me is the other thing. Goaltending and the buy-in. Will the team continue to be able to just play the way that they played, roll the lines, just play that style of Kraken hockey? It seems like you have buy-in because you have that veteran group that you're talking about.
Well, you have identity, and if you watch the preseason games and throw the scores out, which is I think what you should always do, you just look at how the games are played and what they look like, and in terms of systematically how they want to play, suppressing shots, keeping teams to the outside, controlling the middle of the ice, getting it in the forecheck, those things are in play. So there's a built-in knowledge there for these guys. There's muscle memory. They know how to do all those things. That'll carry them to a great spot. It'll get them in grinding games. Will they get the goal support to stretch out games and get breathing room? Because what they ran into in the first year was getting into games that were, 2-1, 3-1 again. Those are hard games to always try to come out on the winning side of, and so that's what they're going to have to be up against again.
All right, last topic, because we just got a couple minutes, because I promised last week we'd bring it up. And since we started talking about Terry O'Reilly and the different planet that we are literally on now, hockey-wise, than we were 30, 40 years ago, even 20 years ago, no fights. There was Tyler Myers not reacting to John Hayden, who basically went after him for the hit on Matty Beniers from when he knocked Beniers out of the lineup for a few days. Let's face it. Can't say it, but you can. But that's it. I mean, not that long ago, you'd have day one of training camp, rookies fighting to just prove themselves, prove their toughness. Yeah. I mentioned that to Dave Haxtell when he was done with his media avail the other day. He was walking by. I said, "Did you notice no fights?" He said, "I did notice. Blank, nothing cross board." And that's just the way it is. That's planet hockey that we live on now, and love it or hate it or somewhere in between. I mean, it was kind of fun to have a little bit of that around.
Yeah, I still think there's a place for it, and I still think there is an element that a lot of teams have still, and it might be something the Kraken look at as they move along here. That still is a situation that when you look at the team now, one of the edgiest guys on the team is Vince Dunn, believe it or not, right? Like he's not afraid to do that kind of thing, but do you want him doing that? No.
Right. No.
Right. Cartier's a young kid. I'm sure he'll be willing, but That's not really a role that you got to see out of a player like that. Alexiak's in the same situation. He's a big guy. He's a sleeping giant. You got to wind him up, and then when he snaps, and he can take care of most people based on his size. But that's not his MO. He doesn't have to be doing that. So they don't have it. They have Hayden in the system. They might need to bring him in on occasion, or address it if need be. But it's getting completely, exercised out of the game, right? It's just we already have one major junior league that's not going to allow it, and it's going there.
Yes.
And so the players are coming up without doing it, and before long, they're just not even going to know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
That said, intimidation, particularly in the playoffs, physicality, anger, hatred, intimidation is still a huge part of the game. Just look at the Stanley Cup champions.
Well, right. And you don't, right. Exactly. You don't want any, no. And they play that way. They're intimidating with presence in terms of the people they put on the ice and how they play the game. But when you have a kid like Beniers, you don't want teams taking liberties, and if that starts to happen, word gets out, right? And that's right now there isn't a problem, right? And maybe there won't be, because the Kraken play a solid team game that the other side has to worry about, how to combat that. That's why they're tough to play against. Right. And so until the need arises, everything's okay.
Hold it. Oh, there's that sound. And of course, I got some cooperation from the off-ice officials that waited for the buzzer.
Of course, they like you.
They gave
you have this engaging personality.
They gave us an extra 90 seconds before they buzzed us off the ice. And Zamboni's got to come out, John. Okay. So I'll give you the tease for next week, because this time it was fighting. Next time it was a great, interesting little comment that I'm hoping to write about this week on SeattleHockeyInsider.com. And that is Ron Francis in his little end of camp address or Q&A with us kind of alluded to the fact that, he's working on the salary cap flexibility for the deadline with possible moves in mind. So last year they didn't make that move. They didn't bring in a name. We can get into it next week, but he's already kind of throwing that concept out there. If they're in that same boat again in year 3, we might see them adding a little candy heading in the postseason. John Forslund, you're a stud. We wish you happy, safe travels. Good luck on the 3-gamer, and we'll see you back at the Climate Pledge Arena for the big home opener. The following, is it on the Tuesday or Wednesday? It's on the Tuesday.
Tuesday. Colorado Avalanche. Remember that team.
It's a tough schedule starting off for these.
It is.
It's the first 10 games. All right, John. Take care of
yourself. You too. Thanks, buddy.
Cheers, bud.